Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks for calling this business meeting and hearing today. First, I would like to speak briefly on the two nominations that we are voting on today. I am pleased to support the nomination of Alejandro Castillo to be Assistant Secretary for EDA at the Department of Commerce, an important position for my state. I appreciated Ms. Castillo's support for some of the key initiatives that impact my state, particularly broadband development. I'm also pleased to vote in favor of reporting the nomination of Jane Nishida to be Assistant Administrator for International and Tribal Affairs at the Environmental and Protection Agency. I appreciate the service Ms. Nishida has given over the years and her responsiveness to my questions for the record. We also gather today to consider the nomination of Michael Connor to serve as Assistant Secretary of the Army for Civil Works. Welcome, Mr. Connor. I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you earlier this week. As you agreed during our conversation, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers can and should improve its operations and more efficiently deliver important water resources projects, both in West Virginia and across our country. Tasked with overseeing the Corps' Civil Works program, the Assistant Secretary position for which you are nominated is integral to decisions pertaining to our nation's water resources and infrastructure. The Corps' activities through navigation, flood risk management, and ecosystem restoration enable economic growth, save lives, and support conservation. In 2019, approximately 2.3 short tons of waterborne commerce moved in the United States, facilitated by our nation's ports and an inland waterway systems dredged, constructed, and maintained by the Corps. It actually goes right by my house, about a quarter of a mile, too. This includes everything from energy commodities to the goods Americans depend on in their lives every day. The Corps' flood risk management activities provided $348 billion in benefits to the national economy in 2019 alone. There are, in addition to other important mission areas, from hydropower to recreation and environmental infrastructure. These projects and activities are authorized and directed under the Biennial Water Resources Development Act, we call it WRDA, which is legislation developed by this committee. As I stated at our most recent meeting, I look forward to building on the bipartisan consensus that we have already achieved on water and surface transportation infrastructure legislation in this committee and moving a water bill to enactment. The cooperation of the Assistant Secretary's office will be integral to this process, as well as the ability of this committee to track implementation of prior water legislation. That being said, I am troubled by language included in support documents for the President's fiscal year 2022 budget that devalues investments in core projects that facilitate American energy independence. This will have world impacts for my state of West Virginia, and as we learned from a core stakeholder at a recent meeting, will hinder development of key infrastructure and energy projects, like offshore wind projects, critical to this administration's professed climate goals. I am also very concerned about this administration's recent decision to replace and repeal the 2020 Navigable Waters Protection Rule, as well as the lack of transparency in the decision-making process and the rationale provided by the Corps and the EPA. Underpinning the administration's decision were several assertions that have yet to be substantiated by evidence of practical environmental harm. Instead, the absence of federal jurisdiction is cited as de facto evidence of environmental harm. It also remains unclear which stakeholders were consulted prior to making this decision. I look forward to hearing Mr. Connor's views on these matters and other issues pertaining to the Corps. His years of experience, and the chairman enumerated those, both in the private sector, this body, and in leadership positions at the Department of Interior, speak to his capability and knowledge of water resource issues. The missions of the Corps and the Bureau of Reclamation do differ in certain respects, and I hope to learn more about how he will approach this important position for which he is nominated. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back my time.